Hey everybody, it's Jordan with Warpfire Minis, and we're moving on into round 3 of LVO. Now that we got a win under our belt, we're 1-1, and we're gonna try and see if we can keep things rolling, so here we go. First up, I'm gonna walk you guys through his list so you know what we're working with. He's got a squad of 2 Tempestors over here. Those are the shooty Dracothian guard unit. 5 Liberators. This is a unit of 6 Questor Soulsworn. I know these are Annihilator models, I just don't have the Soulsworn yet. We've got 3 Evocators on Dracolines. Behind them is Astreia Solbright. This is going to be a squad of 4 Fulminators, Lord-Castellant, and then Ionus. This is my first time going against Ionus, and he's pretty good. Like, the prayer he's got's pretty neat. You want to kind of try and spread out a little bit. His attack profile is decent. The shooting thing, doing mortal wounds, it's just something I'm going to have to look out for. But the big damage threats in his list, like the Tempestors can spike and do damage, but really the 4 Fulminators are like kind of the powerhouse. Ionus is going to help, and then 3 Dracolines, you can't sleep on those. Like, they can charge in and do a good amount of damage. And then the deal with the Questor Soulsworn, they do pretty decent damage, but they also count as 3 each on an objective. So that's 18 models, boom, right there on the center. And then they're also kind of beefy, so that's going to be something we're going to have to send multiple units into to try and clear out. But looking at the state of the board, my opponent, he ended up choosing to go first. And during his turn, all he did was use Lord-Castellant to give the Fulminators +1 to save. Ran his Liberators up here onto this objective. Put the Tempestors over here in range of my Nahal to shut it off. And then these Dracolines moved up just to touch the objective. Solbright just hanging out behind. And then he deep struck in his Questor Soulsworn from the sky. Put them on this objective, and he was just trying to make it difficult for me to take the objectives. If I'm going to take them, I'm going to have to push out. Then he's hoping to win that priority roll and slam in with those Fulminators. So we'll move over into Skaven, bottom of 1. For this one, we ended up choosing Invaders as our battle tactic. He ended up moving Solbrights in range of the Warbringer, and getting Death Frenzy off is just super important to me. So I want to be able to cast it with this guy, and get all my spells off. So we're just going to walk across the line. Going to be easy battle tactic this round. So we go for spells. We end up getting the dreaded Death Frenzy. We end up getting it on 3 units. So it ends up being Screech, the Warbringer, and these PCBs, which is like the best start we can have. Purple guy casts regular Death Frenzy, gets it onto the Help hit as well. So we're living the dream. We end up getting a Mystic Shield onto Screech. He goes into -1 to hit stance to be a little bit defensive. In this one, my opponent, he chose to go first. And again, to get me to push up. So getting Death Frenzy off and then Mystic Shield, -1 stance, I'm getting ready to go out and hit him while also playing a little bit defensively to be able to take the hit back if he does win that priority roll. But other than that, did a couple prayers, beefed up the PCBs a little bit more, and then we're going to movement. All right, and then looking at this one, I always want to score the max every round, so I need to take 2 objectives. This one's clearly going to be the hardest one to take with those 18 bodies on, so we're just going to push out this way. So first up, we move these Clan Rats. We end up running them to make a lane for Screech. Next up, we move Screech over here. We can get just outside of 3 inches of those Liberators. Then over here, we end up running these Clan Rats. I want to use them as a screen to protect against these guys and the Fulminators coming in. And he's got these 2 Evocators on the objective, so I need to make sure I get at least 5 bodies on to take this objective away from him. And that's something I'll be able to do while also staying outside of 9, so he can't redeploy and move that extra one onto the objective on me. From there, I end up running this Greyseer over here to these Clan Rats, and I have both of my Greyseers have Blizzard, and so I like to push them out to where no matter which side the enemy wants to hit me, so if he wants to come hit Screech, I'm going to have a Blizzard chance to get him back. And then like over here, I'd normally put him like up in the middle, so if they want to come after the Warbringer or the PCBs, boom, we have the opportunity to hit him with Blizzard either way he goes. So Greyseer runs over here. The Warbringer just postures up a little bit here, staying by the Nahal for the +1 to cast. PCBs also move up a little bit closer. We always want to set up with the idea of, if I do get the priority and I take the double turn, I want to be able to maximize it. So leaving these guys up to where if I do get it, boom, they're going to be able to jump right into this Soulsworn. And same idea with the Warbringer. He moves 12, so we would be able to put both those units in the Soulsworn and likely wipe them. The 2 Plague Priests just run over here, staying by the guys. And then the Greyseer, we run him up as well. And an important note is we got him within 12 inches of those Soulsworn. Again, if I get the priority roll, I'll be able to try and hit him with the Blizzard. From there, we go to end of movement. The Hell Pit hops into this knothole, jumps out over here, 9 inches away. Then we go for our charges. I end up charging Screech first. I like to charge something else that I'm not actually going to charge in, but this time I ran everybody up, so I didn't have an extra charge to do. So Screech is only 3 away, so I can roll that and re-roll it and still feel pretty safe that I'm going to make it in. And even if he fails by some bad luck, I still control the objective. It's just Liberators, not that big of a deal. But we roll it, we roll small, so I end up re-rolling it again, and we do get the 9, which means Screech gets to make it in. And the Hell Pit can use that same roll and makes it into the Evocators. Monstrous Rampages, we end up roaring the Evocators, so they can't all-out defense. And then Screech, he's going to wax these Liberators. He just goes for a stomp and ends up killing one with the stomp. Combat-wise, the Evocators are much more deadly than the Liberators, so we fight with the Hell Pit first, and he kills 2 of them. He fights with the Liberators. With the -1 to hit and the Mystic Shield, he doesn't do any damage to Screech. Screech fights back and kills the Liberators. Then his Dracoline fights into the Hell Pit. He does, I think, 3 damage to the Hell Pit, and that ends up being the turn. I hold 1, 2 more. I got enough bodies across the zone, so I score my battle tactic. Then we go into a priority roll, and I end up getting the double turn, so Skaven, here we come. For this one, the battle tactic, we end up choosing Led into the Maelstrom. I have to charge a hero in a battle line. This turn, we're pretty much full sending everything in, so somebody's going to be stuck in combat at the end. And if they're not, like, things went super right for me and it doesn't matter anyways. So we start off casting our spells and whatnot. We end up getting the Death Frenzy off again. We only get it on these 2 units this time, but that's still okay. Again, we get a Mystic Shield onto Screech. He goes into his Rend 3 damage 3 stance on his Glaive, since we're going to send him in this turn. And then he ended up being within 13 inches of the Fulminators. So he casts the dreaded 13th, and we end up doing 7 mortal wounds to the Fulminators, which kills 1. And since Screech dealt 7 mortal wounds, we get to summon in a free squad of 7 Clan Rats, which rules. We put them 9 inches away from these Tempestors with the idea of, if I do hit a charge, I can send those in to eat and unleash hell. And so then we go for the big one, we go for the Blizzard, and we end up getting it off into the Soulsworn. And I think it ends up doing like 11 mortal wounds, which kills 3 of them. And I'll add it in that I think Blizzard is kind of a bad time. We've got the battle scroll should be dropping soon. I hope that they tone it down a little bit. But in a lot of games, it just has a bigger impact than I think it should. But this is competitive play. We're at a tournament. You got to use all the tools you have. So Blizzard happened. Do a couple prayers and beef these guys up, and then we're into the movement phase. First move, we're going to send Screech all the way down to those Fulminators. And the big deal with Fulminators is if they charge you, their damage like triples. So you really want to be able to tie them up. The Mystic Shield on Screech and him going in and fighting there first, like there might be 1 left alive and it's just not going to be able to hurt us, especially since it's not going to be able to charge. Next up, we move these Clan Rats. We run, and we're just pushing them out on this objective to make it hard to take for my opponent, and also going to clear a path for these guys to go in. Next up, we send the Warbringer up here outside of 3, and we move him his full 12. And that's just in case they do a redeploy. I want to be as close to those Fulminators if I can to make sure I get some kind of value. Clan Rats down here, we just shimmy up onto the objective. And again, we're just trying to get more bodies on, make it difficult for my opponent to take this one from us as well. Again, we move the Grey Seer up just to make sure we're in Blizzard range if something bad happens. And we move the PCBs up. Then we got our heroes left. We end up running the Grey Seer way over here, get in range for his shrugs, run a Plague Priest over this way and another one here. And trying to spread out a little bit for Ionus' Prayer so we don't get all of them hit at once. And then the end of the movement phase, again, we're just trying to make things as difficult as we can for our opponent as far as taking control of objectives. So we go ahead and send in the 10 Plague Censer Bearers. After the end of the movement phase, we go into charges. We end up charging the little squad we summoned in first. We roll, we fail. We roll again and we get the 9 again, so everybody's going to make it in. First up, we do send in these Clan Rats to take the Unleash Hell, and he doesn't do it over here. So now the PCBs are free to go in with no risk. Then next up, I've got Screech and the Warbringer. I end up charging the Warbringer first, because I want to put him back here and get within 3 of those Fulminators. For my artifact, the Warpstone Charm, now they're going to get an additional -1 to their save. Next up, we charge in Screech. And we go over here, we stay outside of 3 of Ionus. Now the Plague Censer Bearers go in. Into the charge, we go for our Monstrous Rampages. We roar the Fulminators, stomp into the Soulsworn, ended up killing another one. And then the Hell Pit doesn't have anything viable to do. So then in combat, I've got to think about where do I want to fight first. And I also got to keep in mind my battle tactic. I need to end the turn in combat. So we end up fighting with Screech first. We pile him in. And the reason I'm fighting with Screech first is the Fulminators are probably the biggest damage threat. And then he's going to get to choose a combat. He's got the Soulsworn. And just in case, like if there's a world where he spikes with these guys and kills enough PCBs, I want the Warbringer there just as an insurance policy to make sure we kill those. I could have done something like fight with the Warbringer into the Fulminators first and then try to pile Screech into Ionus, which is a good play too. But I'm kind of taking the safer route of like, if I can clear these bodies out and clear those guys out, if he just has Ionus, Castellant, and Solbright left, like it's going to be very tough for him to make that into a game. So we're just playing it safe. We fight with Screech first. He's in his Rend 3 damage 3 stance, but now since he has the Warpstone Charm nearby, that's going to go to a Rend 4. And since I roared the Fulminators, it means they're not going to get to save. So Screech pops his command ability to give himself +1 to hit, +1 to wound. So we're 2s and 2s on those Glaives, and then 2s and 2s on his Plague Reapers too. That'll also be Rend 2. So we fight in the Fulminators and we clear them out. Then one important note, when I piled in Screech, I can pile in my whole army. So I did end up piling in this Hell Pit another 3 inches this way. So after Screech ends up killing the Fulminators, it goes to his combat. He fights with the Tempestors, and they're okay in combat, but their mounts do damage too. But the -1 to wound ability from the Plague Censer Bearers really helps me out, and he kills 3 of them. It goes over to my combat. I fight with the Censer Bearers and kill the Soulsworn. Back over to him, he fights the Hell Pit and does another 2 or 3 damage. In my hero phase, the Hell Pit healed 3, so he went back to full health, and now he'll take another 2 or 3. Then I go ahead and pile in with these Plague Censer Bearers into these Tempestors, and we fight, and we end up killing one of them. And that's important because my battle tactic is to have one of my battle line units stay in combat at the end. So boom, that's where we score it. He doesn't have any combats left, so it just goes to the Hell Pit. I pile in 3 this way, just to get Solbright within 3. Just to tie her up for next turn so she can't do anything. And I fight into the Evocator and kill it. And that's the turn. We hold 1-2 more, we got our tactics, so we're scoring max points. And looking at the state of the table, again, like that is the perfect dream scenario for me as far as hitting all my charges. Most of the combats went my way. Leaving the one guy alive is what I wanted to do. And we've got him tied up, so it's going to be very difficult for him to take any objectives. And so we go into the bottom of 2, it's his turn. He ends up translocating the Lord-Castellant down here. And then into the movement phase, he ends up just retreating Solbright out this way to get open. Ionus flies down this way towards some clan rats. And the Tempestor retreats out of combat, so he doesn't just die. He shoots into the clan rats, does some damage, charges Ionus in, and fights, and I end up having like 4 or 5 clan rats alive at the end of all that. Which is cool for him because Ionus denies Inspiring Presence, so I won't be able to auto-pass Bravery. These clan rats run away at the end of Battle Shock. He ends up getting his battle tactic +1 point for 3. We roll priority again, and then I win the priority roll. And at that point, he ends up calling the game. Just in that turn, the 2 big rats would be able to go over here, clear Ionus. The Hell Pit would clear Solbright, and the PCBs would go kill that Tempestor, and that would just be game over. And like the Cruel Boys game in the last round, this was an instance where everything was just firing on all cylinders for me. I hit all my charges, I won the priority rolls, I got the double turn, the combats, things went my way, and when that happens, this list is just devastating. Like, the PCBs do so much damage, the Vermin Lords do a ton of damage, the Hell Pit does a ton of damage. And so when I have these 5 big threats just crashing into you, and then crashing into you again, each one can typically take out a unit. And so if you lose 5 units followed up by another 5 units, there's just not going to be enough left. And so that was round 3. The rats were 2-1, the 4-1 Dream is still alive, and next up we've got Big Wah. For that one, he's got Gobsprak, which is a bummer for my little wizards. It's got a bunch of brutes, some Ardboys, some pigs. With Big Wah, man, like they're always hitting on 2s and 2s. They got 5 free battle tactics, a free grand strat, and it's one that turns into more of an objective game than a battle tactic game, so it's always tough. So that one will come out next Wednesday. And as always, if you ever need any models, check us out at warpfireminis.com. Thank you.